Mike Neighbors, good friend of the show, Arkansas head women's basketball coach, joining us here on Halftime. Mike, I took a look at your Twitter before we went on here, and I guess before we get into anything, we should offer up a big congratulations for the longest sleep of Bowen's young life. Well done. How long was the sleep, and how did Bowen accomplish this?
7 minutes and 41 seconds of uninterrupted sleep last night, according to his sock that charts every time he wiggles and moves. And listen, y'all know I get zero credit for how cool this baby's turned out to be. He has overcome my DNA every step of the way. But he got a good night's meal, he got a good warm bath, and then the snoo. I'm telling you, is the best technology. The internet and iPhones, there's a lot of good things that have come out, but this snoo just makes for – I hope they make one for adults. The second they do, I'm buying one, because he sleeps like a rock star and wakes up with a good rest. We've been real lucky.
The snoo?
What is the snoo? Can you describe what this piece
curious,
of machinery is?
My little sister's fixing to have a baby, her first kid, so I'm curious.
Okay, just let me tell you this. It's not cheap, but it is well worth it, okay? When you look at it, you're going to go, oh, no. I'm telling you, it's worth every penny. Do whatever you got to do to get one of these things. It is a sleep device. It's a combination bassinet learning device. So you lay him down at night, and you zip him into what looks somewhat like a straitjacket. But it's like a swaddling, snuggly, zip-up jacket, and you lay them down, and it's Bluetooth technology, and when he makes a whimper, the technology hears that sound and jostles him in a certain manner, okay? So y'all with me so far? All right? So he's laying there, and he goes, eh, or whatever. Well, it hears that sound, so it vibrates. Well, if it works, the snoo remembers that sound is attached to that solution.
Oh, my God.
So if he makes a different sound, the next time it makes a different movement. It's got like 30 different settings. So it teaches the baby to self-soothe a little bit, and, he makes one sound and it starts rotating or vibrating or jostling him, or sound of a car or a baby's womb. Like I said, I need one for me. I would love to have one that I can zip myself into at night and do this for me. But I'm telling you, it's worth every single penny, and if you get one for your sister.
Sleep and education all at the same time.
There you go.
I would imagine that student athletes wouldn't mind something like that as well. Certainly the coaches would, if you could, get a straitjacket on them. How are your swaddling skills these days? It took me a few months before I was really good at it. How are you at swaddling?
Way below average. Way below average. He kicks right out of mine in a heartbeat.
Yep.
JC gets him wrapped up like I don't know. I'm just not very good at it. He gets his feet and hands out of mine very, very quickly. But, listen, hey, I'll tell you this. Y'all know part of my strategy is to be so bad at some of this stuff that they don't ask me to do it again.
Right.
So, I'm going to use 11 wipes to clean a dirty diaper. And I'm going to, that just keep that. They're like, hey, let me do it. So I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that's part of my strategy. But I am not very good at it, Phil. I'm really good at reading, playing guitar to him, telling him stories that he's probably too young to be hearing, and watching Hamilton with him. So I've got my sweet spot.
Well, that moves right into the next topic here, and I was going to ask for a scouting report on Bowen, but let's go more with you had given, and I saw this when you took the team to see Hamilton in San Francisco. You gave him a full briefing, a scouting report on Hamilton. You did the same thing on Zoom for those who are interested in it before the show on Friday. So I can imagine that seeing that show on television for you, someone who I think you've seen Hamilton live, 10 or 11 times, was a completely
11.
Different experience, but still highly enjoyable.
No question. The scouting report turned out great. We titled it "The Zoom Where It Happens," and everybody will get the reference. There's a great song in there called "The Room Where It Happens." So we called our little group "The Zoom Where It Happens," and it was great. We had people from all over the world, all ages, some in sports, some not in sports, but all Hamilton interested in seeing it. Some had seen it multiple times, some had not seen it at all, and what we tried to give to the team was just enough to not spoil anything that they were going to experience. But some of the things that, if the people that are listening have seen it or haven't seen it, you have to really be prepared for the pace of the lyrics. It's 20,000 words thrown at you in just under 2.5 hours of actual acting time. So if you're not ready for that, man, it can be overwhelming. I know it overwhelmed me. And then, the dual casting, which, I've learned some theater terms. It's called dual casting, where, Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette are played by the same character, but two completely different roles in the two acts. So tried to share that with the people ahead of time, and I got some really positive responses. It was just a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in that room. And then, if you're looking for people that have seen it live in the theater that have yet to maybe be reluctant to watch it on a streaming situation, what you lose by the ambiance of the theater, the spectacle of getting dressed up and sitting in a really elaborately decorated set and seeing everything all happen at once. You certainly lose that when you watch it in, on a flat screen. But what you gain in seeing the up close expressions, I don't care how good a seat you had when you saw it in the theater. You never got to see the spit come out of King George's mouth and lay there on his lip like you do live on the Disney Channel. So there's something in it for everybody, but certainly be ready for a fast-paced action.
Speaking of women's head coach Mike Neighbors here on Halftime. Coach, wanted to ask you this, too, because we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I'm not the biggest Weird Al fan, but my two guys here, Phil and Matty T, are huge Weird Al Yankovic fans, and I would argue that Matty T is probably the bigger of the two.
What?
Phil, is that a fair statement, Phil?
I don't know.
I've at least seen him live a lot more times and met him more than Phil. I have my picture. I have my picture with.
I'm just curious about this list because we talked about your top 10 or your list of top Weird Al Yankovic songs, and the boys had a little bit of a disagreement that some songs were a little too high, a little too low. Some weren't even in there. I'll leave the floor open to you about your Weird Al Yankovic rankings.
I just tell them make their own damn list. I mean, it's my list. It's my. I mean, they can write whatever down they want to, but when you start putting a number beside it, let's have a talk. Send me your list, and we can have some discussions.
Right.
But I think that's what's the beautiful thing about music, and Phil has to listen to this with me way too much on the road when we get in these discussions with random people from random towns. But so much about music is the time that it finds you and where you're at the time of your life. And for me, Weird Al came out, when it was I Love Rocky Road, and back there another one Rides the Bus, and that a long time ago, and I think Phil's a little younger than I am, and I know everybody's a little younger than I am at this point, but I think that's why the list is what the list is. That's what my favorites are. I sent my list to Phil because I'm working on my top 100,000 songs of all time. And, when I'm down to Weird Al Yankovic, so I'm getting really low.
You're on the back end now. That's right.
I'm on the back end of this, man. I'm on the wise. I am in the wise. And but, again, when you start writing down how many songs that this tremendous, I think he's so overlooked for talent because, it is some type of a parody. Some people, don't consider it music. But I think what he does is brilliant. And I can see why a purist, especially somebody that's met him, could probably have a justified argument with my list. I got no problem, but again, write yours down, send it to me, and we can have a conversation.
Have a man-to-man conversation.
That's right. We can talk about this. We can talk about this like gentlemen.
See, I wonder if, your background as a coach, you being a coach, you have to make difficult decisions on who's getting playing time and who you're making offers to and everything that goes around running a program, so that when it comes time to actually make decisions as to how you're going to rank 1 through 15 on a list like this, I feel like you're used to that. I am somebody that will take forever to make a simple decision. I can't rank anything. It's miserable for me to try it.
Yeah, well, and I think that is part of it. It's where my list making came from. It was like, here's the thing. We sometimes everybody goes, oh, well, they're just ranked 22 this week. Well, you know what? 22 is pretty dadgum good when you start putting numbers beside things.
Yeah.
So when you start ranking your top 25 songs, for example, I guarantee you your 22nd best song is a song that you absolutely love. So that's where that kind of came from. You know, we get ranked every week. Somebody can look at the RPI now every day, and in our profession, you get ranked. They don't have those out there for, you know, other professions. There's not a daily RPI where we can check midday radio host, see how y'all are doing nationwide. I know y'all have, you know, you have ratings, but they're not comparative. So that's where this list came from, and just as an example of how hard it is and how talented. Like I said, I'm at almost 100,000 songs now, and there's still good songs. There's not a bad song on the list. So I just do it to try to kind of put in perspective how much great music there is out there, and we're all moved by it in a different form and fashion. And Phil will tell you, we end up talking about the movie list or the song list way more than we do sports when we're out on the road traveling.
Right.
So let me ask you this. What would be, we'll just say for conversation, what would be your top 5? Like, what's Mike Neighbors' top 5 songs right now? Because I'm a big music guy myself, too.
Number one is Sweet Child of Mine, and it hasn't changed since the mid-'80s. I know it's not even Guns N' Roses' probably best song, but for me, it's my favorite. Number 2 is You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC.
Yes.
Number 3 is Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. Number 4 is Jesse's Girl by Rick Springfield. And I don't want to hear anybody tell me that it's not. It's number 4. Okay? You can argue all you want, and Phil can tell you I've got an autographed picture from Rick because of that. So,
yep.
Rick, it's number 4, and number 5 is King George Amarillo by Morning remake. Most people don't realize it's a remake, but it is, and it's still sitting at number 5.
Interesting. All right, I can handle. That's a good. And like you said, I mean, because these past few years I've really became like a Elton. I mean, I've always enjoyed him, but I love Elton John and Billy Joel and those, like, just the soft voice and just how the rock styles that they do.
Yep.
Love Elton John, and those are we saw Rocket Man. I've still yet to see Bohemian Rhapsody, but those old school bands, and especially during this quarantine and just listening to all these guys, Elton John for me is probably my favorite artist of all time.
Okay, and that's fair. I've got about 45 of his songs written down and ranked, and that puts him, as far as sheer number, that puts him near the top of my list as well.
Good man.
And he's going to fall, you know, if you ask me to start ranking artists, for me, it's not by who has the most songs I like. It's by their impact. So, I think Elton John's I haven't finished that list, but he's on it to be considered. And I would guess he's going to fall in the top 25.
SmackDown, you got to make, if you're looking for certain types of memorabilia, you got to have scouts all across the country searching for those things for you, like Nabes does. I think I was sitting next to you when you were handed the Rick Springfield signed album. I forget the name of the ESPN announcer that handed it to you.
It's Paul Sunderland.
That's
and
Paul.
He,
that's right.
Yeah, he had read, Jerry Thorpe had put in our game notes that I had this music list, and Rick Springfield's number 4, and Paul did his research and was digging on it, and he came in and told me, he said, I'm his next-door neighbor. And I said, well, wait a second, what? I was like, first of all, Paul, what are you doing living in Malibu and doing our game on broadcast? I don't get it. What that doesn't, first of all, that doesn't add up to me. But he just loves to do it. He does it a lot for fun. So, anyhow, he said, well, the next time I see you, I'm going to get Rick to sign it for me. It says, go Razorbacks, go Hogs, Rick Springfield, and it's sitting in a very prominent spot in my music room.
Okay, I want to close out, and this will be a non-basketball interview. We'll have no basketball in this.
Great, awesome, because I don't know anything about it. I got no answers for you there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's got any answers for us as far as college sports are concerned right now, so why ask the questions? I sent you a photo before we went on today. It was a photo of my face. I've been talking about the facial hair on the show for a while now, and I am guaranteeing you that this horseshoe mustache will make me a better billiards player just on intimidation factors alone. So when you saw this photo, do you think this fits my face? Do I need to shave the thing off?
No, you need to keep it for sure because, hey, listen, when Todd Barber stopped traveling with us, we lost a little bit of our macho-ness.
That's right.
And Dave maybe going to start traveling with us. That'll help. But, me, you, Todd, and Jeff, and Chantel, and Pauline rolling into a place. We need somebody like you looking tough, like you can handle yourself. So you keep that thing. And I don't think there's any question it's going to help your pool game because, where you're starting at, you got no room but to go up, brother.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Well, he's just speaking truth right there.
You need me. I need to tag along with these guys because you got the macho-ness with the mustache, and I just scare everybody when I walk into a room.
Yeah, put the horseshoe mustache on your face.
Phil is good at darts. He's good at video games. He's great at pool. You got to be pretty good at pool in our group to hang because we got some sharks. Coach Schaefer's probably the better of all of us, but there's a marathon match every now and then between Jeff and Phil that it's fun to watch.
Right, it's a couple of D-leaguers going up against each other. Hey, Dave, we'll leave it there. Great talking with you. Thanks a lot. Say hi to Bowen and JC, and
yes, sir.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks,
okay,
Coach.
boys. See y'all. All right.
Mike Neighbors, Arkansas head women's basketball coach. Lots of fun. There really aren't many coaches across college sports or sports in general that you could do a full 15, 16 minutes with.
That was great.
And not bring up sports once.
This is the room where it happens. I liked his the Zoom where it happens reference.
Yes. It was definitely the Zoom where
I didn't mention that I did get to interview Weird Al too, but I thought that, at that point I was just laying it on thick.
Yeah, you're just bragging.
I thought that was a legit I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I would say that you're the bigger fan.
I don't want to,
So at some point we're going to have to do like we did yesterday.
A trivia challenge?
Let's do that next Friday. We'll have a Weird Al Yankovic trivia.
Wow, okay. Name
boy.
that tune, though?
Name that tune. Yes. We'll do
with all original songs?
All original, yes. We'll do a Name That Tune with Weird Al Yankovic. Without it, we'll decide who's the biggest Weird Al Yankovic fan, Phil Elson or Matty T.
All right. We have to take one more break, right?
Yes.
All right.
Do we have to?
Let's take that break, and we'll come back and wrap the show up and finish off the week here on Halftime, so stay tuned.
I approached Madison and said, I know you hate him, but let's hear what he has to say. Well,